Hey guys, Ryder here, and today we're doing something a little different. I posted all my boss guides for Dark Souls 1, and I thought it would be fun to close the chapter on this game by kind of giving my feedback and ranking of all of the bosses in Dark Souls 1 from the worst to the best, starting with the worst, going to the best. These are my own personal opinions. They're not a representation of like fact. This is just my experience, my opinion. But you know, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I ranked these kind of based off of enjoyability, whether or not there was even a point to them, difficulty, enjoyment, maybe some character model things, just what I thought the boss was worth in its ranking. So it's not necessarily a difficulty, or even it's not even really a difficulty list or anything like that. It's more of just my own personal opinion on which bosses really hit the mark in Dark Souls 1 and which ones really shit the bed. We're gonna kind of go through it boss by boss. But before we get started, be sure to hit that like button, ding the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Maybe I messed up a ranking and you guys disagree. I'd love to hear it. And check the description down below where you'll find the link to my Twitch channel. I stream a plethora of different Soulsborne, Souls-like content, MMORPGs and RPGs, and I stream all of those pretty regularly. So hopefully we will see you in there. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Deep in the ruins of Lost Izalith, we have one of the four Lord Souls, the Bed of Chaos. Now, in theory, putting this boss at the bottom of the list here as the worst boss in this game, like, it's fitting. I'm sorry. This boss is trash. Like, it's the easiest way to put it. It's trash because FromSoft, the team of people who legit thrive on making our lives difficult, put a checkpoint in this boss. Legit put a checkpoint in the boss because they knew how bullshit this boss was. This is just a little string. I look at how annoying this boss is, okay? And there was so much potential with it. This boss had so many cool things that it had going for it, with the fire mechanics and like the slashing tree limbs and the collapsing floor and all of that. Like, they had so much potential with this boss. And instead they turned it into this gimmick boss that you had to run from left and right to kill these things off. And then you had to jump onto this absurdly small platform in the middle of a hole while this dude's just swinging bloody murder at you. And I mean, it's just ridiculous, the sheer amount of frustration this boss brings to an average player. It's a complete disconnect from the entire rest of the game, whereas most of the bosses in the game, even some of the other ones on this list that I will name as bad bosses, even those bosses at least is like it's a fight. This fight isn't a fight. It's a test in your patience and being able to land on a small fucking platform with bad platforming skills. It's just such a disconnect from everything else in this game, and it belongs to the bottom of the list. I'm glad they never in the future Dark Souls games did anything like this again. This boss is garbage, and it belongs in the trash. If they deleted it completely, I wouldn't even shed a tear. This boss, bad boss, belongs at the bottom of the heap, hands down. Bringing up the rank at number 25, deep in the catacombs, we have the Amalgamation Mage, Pinwheel. Now, this boss isn't really bad or at the bottom of the list for any specific reason. Like, it's not like he's it's not like he's bad in terms of design. Like, I think he actually looks really cool with the masks on him and like the thing, and getting to him is one of those things that's harder than actually fighting him. I think the thing that bothers me about this boss is that you could legit remove this boss from the game entirely, and no one would give a damn. He's just a normal enemy that's just there. He never has enough health to even survive long enough to get any of his moves off. And then right after you kill him later on the Tomb of the Giants, he becomes a general enemy in front of Gravelord Nito's boss arena. So yeah, this boss right here, he's pretty rough. He's forgettable and honestly does nothing to advance the game whatsoever. Next we have the Demon Fire Sage. So the Demon Fire Sage is located in the Demon Ruins, and this guy is another one that if you deleted him from the game, no one would care. No one would care at all, and nobody would notice. He guards a shortcut back to the Quelaag's Domain bonfire. Other than that, you literally don't even need him. Despite the fact that he's also a reskin of a boss that you've already faced twice in this game. And, you know, I would even be willing to forgive that. I'd be willing to forgive that if he didn't have the exact same identical moveset. I mean, at least from the Asylum Demon to the Stray Demon learned a few tricks with his magical blasts. This guy is just the Stray Demon, but he's on fire. Ooh, creative. Like, there's nothing creative about this guy at all. This guy was boring, dumb, and, like, he was just there to just waste my time and be in the damn way. Wasn't even that difficult at this point because he just had more health. Honestly, waste of time. Complete and utter waste of time. Next on the list, we have the Taurus Demon. This is actually this one I was kind of hesitant to place so low on the list because he is kind of a cool aesthetic boss. I think the main reason that I have a problem with the Taurus Demon is the fact that he doesn't really add anything. I like bosses that teach you a lesson or teach you a useful skill or something like that. This boss doesn't really teach you anything. I would say it teaches you the plunging attack, but you learn that during the Asylum Demon, you know? I guess if I wanted to, for argument's sake, I could say that he teaches you to avoid the side so you don't get yeeted off the side. But other than that, this boss is very forgettable, and he's another one that becomes like a general enemy later in the game. And even when he is a boss, he's really not that difficult. Like, I really didn't find him engaging. I thought he was cool. His model's cool. But I felt like he was a boss that was just there to be a boss. I didn't care much for him. I thought he was a little too meh. And honestly, like, you could delete him from the game, and I wouldn't really care. Following up in the lineup, we have the Moonlight Butterfly, located down in the Darkroot Garden. This boss is the most boring boss I've ever seen in a Souls game. Okay, like, and maybe that's because I prefer playing on a melee build. On my caster build, this was done in minutes. But from a melee build, I mean, all you can do is stand there and just watch this dumbass float left to right while you're dodging these stupid inherent blasts and just waiting for him to come down for some odd reason. There's not even a reason for it. He comes down to melee range for you to smack him. And, you know, I'd be willing to forgive the whole thing if it wasn't the fact that the reason he comes down to melee range, there's no point to it. Like, this guy could literally stay in the air and shoot me to death, and I could never kill him. But because the developers wanted melee builds to have a chance, they decided to give him a random ability where he gets in melee range, which they could have done better. Like, maybe given me like some ability or some item that I could pick up that I could use to get him down to melee range. Like, I don't know. I know this was an older game in the PS3 era, but maybe like a hook shot of some kind or something to just bring him down to my level. Because just running in circles and waiting for him to land and then being able to hit him a few times before he just inevitably tries to blow me up and then fly away, it just does not make for an engaging boss fight. It's boring. There's really no point other than the free souls. He doesn't even really drop anything really worthwhile. The only reason that you go out of your way to take this guy on is for the large ember that he guards. Other than that, you really don't care about this guy. Moonlight Butterfly is a boss that's just there to waste your time. Next on the list, we have the tutorial boss of Dark Souls 1, the Asylum Demon. This is the first boss that a new player is going to encounter, and I did put him this high up on the list. I mean, he's still low. He's not an engaging boss by any means, but I put him higher than the other bosses on this list because of the fact that he is an introductory boss, and he does teach some important lessons to new players. As a new player, you know, if you're new to Souls and you come in here and he plops down in front of you and that big booty's there, your immediate reaction is going to be, I have to fight this boss. And all you have is a broken sword at your disposal. This boss teaches you that if something is too difficult, there has to be another way. And that's the door to the left. And then you're able to learn things, come back, and it teaches you the plunging attack, and it teaches you how to actually fight a boss. This is a great introductory boss, probably one of the best in the series in my opinion, just because of the fact that it teaches you the idea of exploration, learning from your mistakes, learning a few new tricks of the trade before you go and explore the greater world of Dark Souls. Even from a magic standpoint, this is a fun boss. I like this boss. Definitely not the best of the list, but I definitely think he serves his purpose, and he deserves to be higher than the other ones that I put on this list. Next up on the list, we have the Ceaseless Discharge. Now, this boss is located in the Demon Ruins. He is mandatory, and to be completely honest, like, let's ignore the fact that this boss can be completely cheesed by pulling him running back to the fog wall and he just falls off the map. GG FromSoft for never patching that even in the remaster. But ignoring that fact, this boss is just so clunky and boring. He does a lot of damage if he hits you, but not really though. Like, he doesn't do anything but just swing them little tentacles around, and then he just leaves his arm there for like a good 5 seconds, allowing you to just waylay on him. There's no challenge in this boss whatsoever, even if you do choose to fight him outright. You just kind of stay to the side, smack his tentacle. He leaves himself wide open 55 million times. It's kind of like the Moonlight Butterfly all over again. You know, that FromSoft really wanted to like hit home when your openings were, and so they're just like, hey, we're going to leave the arm sitting there for 5 to 10 seconds so that the player knows this is his chance to hit. It's like, we're not dumb. We can tell, hey, maybe we should hit him then. Don't, and I mean, obviously they learned this in the later Souls games, but like in this point right here, this is just straight boring. And he's, again, another boss that's just kind of in the way. He does serve the purpose of like, them by lore putting him as the cause of the lava, but still, like, really boring boss. I think they could have done a lot better with this boss in general. Following up that, we have the Stray Demon, located back at the Undead Asylum when you come back the second time. Now, this boss, I placed him higher than the Asylum Demon. I placed him higher than the Demon Fire Sage for 2 reasons. One, he is optional, and he's not necessarily something that you're gonna find unless you're really, really hunting for it. Like, a new player may not even know to go back to the Undead Asylum. So this is a boss that's completely missable, and he's not really in the way or guarding anything in particular. It's just an easy Titanite slab and 20,000 souls. And he's there as a challenge if you want to fight him. He is a reskin, but like I said with the Demon Fire Sage, he is a reskin that actually has some new tricks. He has the magical blasts that he added to the fight. On top of the fact that you're in a much smaller arena, making this fight a lot more difficult than the Asylum Demon, it's like a good step up of like, let's test where you're at now. Still kind of a lazy reskin, but I appreciate the fact that this boss is at least 100% just an optional challenge if you want the free souls, and beyond that you can just forget about him and leave him there and you never have to touch him. I think he's a decent boss, but still, I mean, it's one of those things that I like a boss that's going to give some sort of a lesson or have some sort of a point, basically. I will say the one drawback that didn't put this boss higher on the list is the fact that he is very tedious. Getting down to him at the point in the game that you should go down to him, he has a very high health pool, and it just makes this fight a slog. It makes it take forever. Whether you're a magic caster, whether you're a melee fighter, it just makes this fight drag on and take forever. Way down in the depths of Undead Burg, we have the Gaping Dragon. The Gaping Dragon is a boss. I put him this high on the list and higher than the others purely because of his character model and the fact that he is a wicked cool boss. I mean, like, look at this guy. Look at him. He looks terrifying. Like, this guy is nightmare fuel at the max, and I just want to sit and look at him because he's so badass looking. And the thing is the only thing that really holds this boss back from being higher on the list is the fact that even though he's really, really cool looking and he's in a very difficult area that's kind of a challenge to get to him, he is really boring to fight. Like, he doesn't do anything overly difficult. He doesn't do anything overly engaging. From a melee and a caster standpoint, run to his ass and stay to his side, and you barely have to worry about anything. Pay no attention to the fact that I just got this shit smacked out of my mouth, okay? But regardless, this boss is, like, ridiculously easy. And I felt like with this size of a boss arena and this character model, I just felt like he should be so much cooler and do so many cooler things. I think it would have been cool with the fact that this being a poisonous depths, having him maybe like spew a bunch of poisonous acid out of that big maw of his, or maybe making him a little bit more aggressive where he charges at you with that big gaping maw a little bit more. Maybe making this fight a little bit more engaging and threatening would have made this boss a little higher on the list and made it a little bit cooler. But in its current state and how clunky and slow he is, it just makes this fight just a slog and just not very engaging at all whatsoever. Even as a caster, you can, like, that's even worse. If you're a caster, you just shoot this guy from a distance and he never touches you. All in all, really cool boss. I love the area he's in. I love fighting him just because I love looking at him. But beyond that, he's honestly one of the more like easier bosses, and I just think that's a shame and holds him back from getting higher up on this list. Located in Anor Londo by doing the unspeakable thing of killing Guinevere and dropping the realm into Twilight, we have Dark Sun Gwyndolin. Dark Sun Gwyndolin is an optional boss. You don't have to fight him, and in all reality, it's another one of those hidden bosses, kind of like the Stray Demon, that you never have to tackle if you don't want to. But if you do want to tackle him, you have to be a jerk and attack Guinevere. And you'll never get to see that amazing chest again. This fight is... The main reason I put this fight higher on the list is because of the fact that he is a hidden boss, and he's one that's kind of like unique in the fact that you have like an opening cutscene. When you go to fight him, you have the entire zone change. All the enemies despawn because this guy has been summoned. Like he's one that's very, very cool to encounter for a new player. The thing that kind of holds him back from going higher on this list is purely the fact that he has such a limited moveset, and the whole thing is just you chasing him down a hallway, which makes for such boredom. If they wanted to do the hallway chase thing, maybe a good thing would have been maybe add some minions in there that you maybe had to like fend off while you chased after him, or gave him some more threatening things, because all you really had to do was just roll past a few things, bob and weave, and get within range, and the guy has such an abysmally low health pool that you can just drop him in no time. He's not a particularly challenging boss, and for a hidden boss that has these secret things like this, I feel like they should... There should be a reward for discovering these kind of hidden bosses by having like a unique challenge in fighting them. I don't feel like it should be something that you just rickroll and just power through like you see me doing here. Cool boss, really cool model, really cool aesthetic. I like the way you find him, but I think the fight itself holds it back from being one of the better fights in Dark Souls 1. Following up on this, we have Crossbreed Priscilla, located in the Painted World of Ariamis. This boss is actually an optional boss as well, and it's another one that you can easily miss if you don't collect the right item from the Undead Asylum and know to go to the painting in Anne Orlando. It's all things that's like, it's a really cool zone and a cool hidden little thing that's in the game that you would not be chastised for missing because it's not something that's easily spoken out to you. Crossbreed Priscilla's, on the good note, really cool aesthetic. I think it's cool the fact that she's not hostile as soon as you walk in and talk to her. I think it's really cool that she has this invisibility mechanic that you have to like watch the footprints on the ground to tell where she's at. I think all of that's really cool, but I think the thing that holds her back from being higher on this list is the fact that she is so abysmally easy to figure out. Like, you see the invisibility thing and you see footprints, and once you figure that out from a melee standpoint, you just beat her to death. Like, she does not have a high health pool. She's not overly aggressive in any way. And even as a caster, I mean, as a caster, I struggled a little bit to get her out of stealth and got smacked around a little bit by her. But that's mainly just because casters don't have high melee output anyway. Other than that, I mean, like, as soon as I got her out of stealth in my caster playthrough, I was able to murk her just the same. It's just, I felt like this boss is another one, kind of like Dark Sun Gwendolyn, that's held back by the fact that FromSoft took these risks of creating these unique boss encounters, but failed to capitalize on making the fight better. You know, they made it, they tried so hard to make these optional encounters unique that they failed to make them good, if that makes sense. I think this boss has a really cool model, really cool weapon, really cool aesthetic and idea and everything, but I feel like what, again, holds her back from getting higher up on this list is purely the fact that she is just too easy. Way too easy. For a boss in a hidden area, this is just a snores fest of a boss that you can just... she's forgettable for the most part, except for those few mechanics that she has. Now, you want to talk about some bullcrap bosses. This is a bullcrap boss. The Capper Demon is the biggest cuck boss in Dark Souls 1. Okay, I put him higher on the list purely because he does teach you the idea of having to think on your feet and move fast. But beyond that, like, I really honestly, I contemplated putting this thing, like, just above the Bed of Chaos on this list. I don't like this fight. I don't like the fact that you're in a small, cramped room with a boss and two annoying dogs with nowhere to go, and all you have is a little set of broken stairs. I lost count how many times in my first playthrough of Dark Souls 1 that I died to this jackoff. Okay, this guy makes me want to find Miyazaki, smack him in the mouth, and say, "What the fuck were you thinking, bruh?" Because this guy is one of the most aggravating bosses I've ever seen. Ignore the fact that we have two dogs chasing you, a boss chasing you, no room, but not just that, they are on you the minute you walk through the fog gate. I legit, kid you not, I don't have footage of it, but there was an attempt where I was in my first playthrough, I walked through the fog gate and was dead before I was able to move because the dogs and the boss just bum rushed me. It's a bullshit fight. It's right at the middle of the pack in terms of, like, it's not the worst fight in the game, but it's definitely not the best. And every time I play through this game, I dread coming down here to deal with this guy. The only saving grace is that if you have the Master Key, you don't even got to deal with him at all. But this guy is still a jackwagon of a boss, and I highly, highly wish that they did a better job with him. Now we move on to the first DLC boss on this list, the Sanctuary Guardian. The Sanctuary Guardian is the very first boss you're going to tackle in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC in Dark Souls 1, and to be completely honest, he's not anything flashy or crazy, but I thought he was a really fun boss to encounter as, like, a good shake the rust off. You know, if you come back to tackle this DLC after not playing Dark Souls 1 for a while, if you were one of the new players of the game and the DLC came out and you went to tackle tackle the DLC when it came out. It's like a good shake your rust off and get used to the game kind of boss. There's not a lot of flash. He doesn't do anything too crazy, but I do think that he serves the purpose of being like an introductory boss to the DLC, and it's a good way because at the point in time and the DLC was new, players were going in and they were having to shake that rust off and get used to fighting in the game again, and this was a good way to get a player who hadn't touched the game used to the mechanics again. And I think it deserves its spot right here in the middle of the pack. He's not bad, but he's definitely not the greatest. Alright guys, it's time to tackle one of the most frustrating bosses out of the four Lord Souls. I place this boss just above Bed of Chaos because this boss does have some bullshit mechanics. But we have Grave Lord Nito, located down in the Tomb of the Giants. Okay, let's ignore the fact that the Tomb of the Giants is a bullshit zone, okay? No one likes the Tomb of the Giants. Screw that place. But this boss is a terrible reward for making it through the Tomb of the Giants. Okay, let's ignore the fact again that you start out right there dropping to half health because of the stupid fall damage that's unavoidable. Let's also ignore the fact that out of nowhere you can be halfway across the map in this fight and Nito can just, hey, guess what? Blade through the ground and stab you to death. But he also has an unending swarm of skeleton mobs that are constantly annoying you to death, that constantly respawn, unless you're smart enough to bring a divine weapon, which most people never really do that much. Add that to the fact that he is constantly spewing out all of this shadow damage and dark damage and everything, that this fight is just pure chaos, is what it is. I've never managed to play this fight without it turning into a chaotic mess of a fight, because the whole time I'm trying to swing at a boss, I have skeletons bum rushing me and shadow blade things going on. I'll try to get away to go try to heal up, and then a blade comes out the ground and smacks me in the goddamn air. And like, everything in this fight is just chaotic. This is probably the only cool thing in the fight, and that's the grab. I do like the little mechanic of him grabbing it. I will give Nito points on this. His character model, cool as shit. He looks badass. Like, he looks awesome. And like, the boss arena looks awesome. It's just everything around it. It's like, I felt like they just took a boss and was like, skeletons. We need more skeletons. Let's make this chaotic as hell. Let's go. And they just throw them all out there. And it's just a mess. This fight's a total mess. Nito himself, by himself, isn't really all that engaging. So I get why they did the skeleton thing, but I kind of wish that there was like a different way to get rid of them, or something along those lines, or I don't know. I don't really know what I want that would make this fight better, because on a level I agree with what they did, but on another level it's just, this fight's just pure chaos. You get lucky when you kill it, in my opinion. But all in all, middle of the pack, just above Bed of Chaos and the four Lord Souls. Next on, we have the Centipede Demon, a mandatory boss located at the bottom of the Demon Ruins, and you have to kill this prick to get to the Lost Izalith to go fight the Bed of Chaos. So it's like one bad boss into another bad boss, because Centipede Demon is not anything crazy to write home about. Okay, I will say this. Really cool character model. He's like an amalgamation of like parts of demons, which I think is kind of cool. Like, if you cut off his arm will become animated and start attacking you, which I thought was kind of neat. The thing that really holds this boss back is that just the small amount of maneuverability you have. He starts out in the middle of the lava and just meanders towards you, and it's like all you can do is just stand there at the side and wait for him to get close. I mean, there's other land masses you could go to, but the lava takes away like a quarter of your health as you stand in it, and honestly, going to those other platforms doesn't really make the fight all that much easier. This fight's really just a test of your ability to dodge and your ability of patience, and exactly how much health do you have to survive all of the onslaughts of attacks that this guy does. Ignore the fact that you can also glitch him out and kill him by making him jump through the map. He's just a boss that I look at him and I go, man, this boss would be so much cooler if they put a little bit more creativity in the fight and removed some of the lava. Like, I don't know. It's just, it really bothered me with the small cramped spaces, and just, it's a common trope in Dark Souls 1 that some of these bosses that they put a lot of work into making just don't have anything super interesting that they do. It's just the environment that makes them difficult. And I think that's kind of what holds this boss back from being higher on the list. Getting into some of the better bosses in Dark Souls 1, we have the loyal man's best friend of the Knight Artorias. We have the Great Grey Wolf Sif, located in the Darkroot Garden, guarding that grave, and we get to be the jerk that comes up and decides to pick a fight with the dog that's just guarding its former master's grave. We all feel bad killing this guy, but it has to be done. We need that ring. The fight itself really isn't all that interesting for me, so I think that's why I didn't place it higher. Like, the majority of the fight can just be nullified by staying underneath the boss, and most of Sif's attacks are dodged. And I think that's kind of what holds him back. I think that the idea of a dog carrying a greatsword in its mouth and just swinging it wildly is a really cool idea, and I think it's really neat. I just can't get past the fact that 90% of the attacks that he does can just be dodged by rolling underneath of him. I think what places him higher on the list is the fact that you do need to fight him to get that ring, so there's a reward in it for you. The lore behind him is really, really cool, and on top of that, he's probably one of the most iconic bosses in this game, just because of the fact that nobody really wants to kill him, and everybody feels like a jerk when they kill the puppy. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it's one of those bosses that I feel like it should be more. I feel like he should have like maybe one good wombo combo move, and he doesn't really have one. And it's a shame that this fight couldn't have a little bit more flair with it. But all in all, I think it deserves this place on the list. It's in the upper echelon of fights in Dark Souls 1. But it's just missing something. At the top of Sen's Fortress, you are rewarded by fighting the Iron Golem. The Iron Golem on top of Sen's Fortress is like the worst reward. After fighting through a fortress of booby traps and snake monsters and, you know, all sorts of boulders and giants throwing firebombs at you, you face this guy. This guy is... Iron Golem is one of those bosses that, like, I feel like he was just here to annoy me. He doesn't really do anything overly cool. And I think that's why I didn't care much for him. I found him just to be clunky and boring. Ignore the fact that he can also, like, back jump off the platform, which is kind of the most entertaining thing about him. He also just staggers and falls on his ass whenever he takes enough damage to his legs, and just gives you a free kill, which makes this fight also very, very dull. I think the thing that makes me put this guy higher on the list is just because his model is really, really awesome. The area he is located in is really, really awesome. Sen's Fortress, while albeit very frustrating with all the traps, is a cool area to traverse through. I do like the fact that he has like the added ranged tornado or airwave, whatever the hell you want to call it, that happens when you're at a distance, and I think that's a really cool thing. And this boss does kind of teach you again and reinforce the fact of, hey, stay away from the edges, dingus, because otherwise he's gonna launch your ass right off the platform. This boss, all in all, is not anything to write home about, but I do like him. I think he's cool. This is the part I don't like, is where he gets staggered and just falls to the ground, gives you a free kill. It's kind of a cop-out, and it kind of makes you just go, really? That's it? But either way, I mean, this is a cool boss. Located down in the depths of Blighttown, we have the Chaos Witch, Quelaag. Now, the Quelaag boss is unique in a lot of different ways. I really did enjoy fighting her for many different reasons. The sword, the model, not to mention the assets that she has. Sorry, I got distracted. Anyway, the absolute unit of a fight. This fight really, like, It's so cool with the different area denial, the fight itself, everything involving it from the point blank AoE to the area she's located. All of it is just so well done, and she deserves this spot on the list. Next up on the list, we have Seath the Scaleless. Located down in the Crystal Cave outside of the Duke's Archives. I think this boss deserves this placement this high up on the list purely because of the fact that it is a two-phase encounter in a way. You meet him in the Duke's Archive, and he's unkillable, and he absolutely murks you. And then you have to, like, go through his archive and escape from his prison and everything, and then discover how to kill him, and you get down here. I think the one thing is all you have to do is break this crystal, and you can start killing him, and I think that kind of is, like, well, alright then, fine. I think the thing that holds this boss back from being higher up on the list than what it is just the fact that if you have high armor, the curse damage is non-existent, and all you really have to do is just stay to his side or to his tails at the back, and 90% of his moves are just negated. And I think that's kind of a shame, because this boss has a really cool character model and a really cool story and a really cool arena. And I think if there was a better way to have this fight take place, I would be all for it. And I think it's a shame that we don't do it. Located down in the depths of the New Londo ruins, this fight is awesome. The Four Kings. This fight is one of those fights that, like, it's so cool. Like, not just getting down to them. Like, getting down to them is a pain in the ass because you got to get, like, the curse to fight the ghosts, and you got to lower the water level, and you got to fight through the dark wraiths and everything. But not only is this fight really wicked because you're literally fighting them in pure fucking darkness, but you also have to have a special ring just to survive down here, and you're fighting 4 bosses at one time, but it turns into more if you're not doing enough damage. I think that's a really cool mechanic. The fact that, like, this is like the definition of a damage check in Dark Souls 1. If you're not doing enough damage to these bosses, you will not kill it. Bottom line, because they will swarm you. I think the one thing that keeps this boss higher on the list for me is just the character model, the area, the uniqueness of it, the fact that it's an actual damage check. It's really, really cool. I think the one thing that holds it back is just the limited moveset of the Four Kings. All they really do most of the fight is just stand there and just lazily swing their sword left to right and forward. Every now and then you may get a magic blast out of them, and every now and then they may try to grab you, and if they grab you, you're going to have a bad time. But other than that, they really have a limited moveset that doesn't really do anything, and doesn't really make them a super challenging encounter mechanically, at least until you end up with more than one at the table. Now, if you end up with more than one out there, I take it back. Things get hectic as hell, and God help you. But by one-on-one, if you're doing enough damage, this fight is trivialized and easily taken down, and I think that's such a shame for a boss that looks as cool as these guys do, and as awesome as the arena is. I feel like they could have done so much more, at least maybe made them spawn quicker so you had to deal with 2 of them at the same time at minimum. Kind of like the Bell Gargoyles, maybe have the second one spawn when you get the first one to half health, require you to, like, take out the first one and then take out the second one, and then you get the second one to half health, third one will spawn. Like, I feel like maybe having them spawn back a little quicker would have made this fight a little bit more challenging and a little bit more engaging, but unfortunately they just didn't do that, and it results in the fight being a very lazy, boring encounter of a 1v1, and it's such a shame because this boss is easily one of the coolest bosses in the base Dark Souls 1 game. Located in 5th place, we have the final boss of the base game of Dark Souls 1, Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder. Now, the final boss of this game, honestly, he's really cool looking, and his music is his whole model, soundtrack, area, everything's wicked. Like, and I like the fact that he fights you almost like an NPC player. I think he's a really, really cool boss, and that's why I have him so high on the list, because he's such an iconic character in the game, and he's a great reward for all of the hard work you put into on getting to him. The problem with him is that with them kind of modeling him after a general NPC player, he doesn't do anything overly flashy. He doesn't do anything overly cool, and nothing that he does is really overly difficult. So at this point in the game, if you were able to kill the entire DLC, all of the bosses in the base game, this boss is just trivialized. I didn't even show my footage of my Magic playthrough, but I basically 3-shot this guy on a Magic playthrough, and on a Melee playthrough, I mean, I'm not really having a struggle at all. Like, this guy's not a challenge, and it's such a shame. I feel like a final boss should be iconic and huge and so amazing, and a challenge because it's the final boss, right? Grand finale. But instead, he's just easy. And not ignore the fact as well that he can be staggered into oblivion. If you have a weapon with enough stagger and poise damage, you can stun lock him to death, and he won't even touch you. So that's why I don't have him like higher on the list than this, but I do think he deserves the place of 5th place. He's definitely one of the top 5 bosses of the game. I think he's really awesome. I think he deserves the place, and I would love to see maybe a little bit of a better thing. Like, honestly, I think what they did in Dark Souls 3 with this same kind of character model was better. Located in Anor Londo, we have the dynamic duo, the threatening team of Ornstein and Smaug. These two, these two are the definition of frustration. At this point in the game, most players will get very frustrated at Ornstein and Smaug, because of the fact that up until now, you didn't really have a 2-on-1 encounter. I mean, unless you want to count the Bell Gargoyles, but the Bell Gargoyles, you can kill the first one before the second one joins the fight. This is the only true 2-on-1 fight in this game, and it is so difficult. And the reason why it's difficult isn't even really the bosses, it's the clunkiness of the system. So Dark Souls 1 was made in a time where movement was very slow. Even if you were fast rolling, your movement was very slow. So you had to really pick and choose when to pick the fights with these guys. Otherwise, you were just going to get hammered into oblivion by Smaug. I do think that this boss deserves the place of 4th place on this list, mainly because it teaches you to be patient. It teaches you to pick your attacks. It teaches you to be aware of your surroundings at all times, not get greedy. You don't want to go in and swing on one of these guys for too long, because the other one's going to be coming and beating you up. Not to mention, I do think it's really, really, really wicked that these guys have differing health pools and differing phase 2s depending on who you kill first. And I think that's really neat, because that changes the whole dynamic of the fight based off of how do you want to tackle this. Do you want to deal with somebody who's faster and swings fast, you gotta dodge more, or do you want to deal with someone slow and clunky that you have to be aware of every step you take, or you're going to just get one shot? So you get to kind of choose that and tailor the fight to what you think is best, and I think that makes it a very unique encounter in the Dark Souls 1 story and in the Dark Souls 1 game that sets this boss apart from the other fights in Dark Souls 1. I can't say enough good things about this fight. I think the thing that kind of holds it back a little bit is just the fact that the bosses have such a small move set that, like, you just find yourself 90% of the time just running away from the bosses and waiting for Ornstein to do the one charge attack in so you can lay some hits in on him. Otherwise, you're just kind of running in circles, and the AI doesn't want to separate themselves long enough to really make you do anything. And I think that holds the fight back a little bit and makes it a little bit longer and makes it drag out a little bit longer than it really needs to. And I think that's why I didn't really place that higher, but it's definitely one of the more unique and cooler bosses in Dark Souls 1. Now we move on to the top 3 of Dark Souls 1 bosses, and in third place we have the Black Dragon Kalameet. This boss is an optional boss in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, and this boss is absolutely nuts. It's the only dragon boss that you have in Dark Souls 1, and he is so punishing. The reason why I have him ranked so high on this list is because of the fact that you have to go through so many steps just to fight this guy, which makes him very difficult to even get to fight. You see him on the bridge, you can go down to his arena, but if you try to fight him without doing the steps, he just stays airborne and burns you to death. You literally have to move past the Artorias boss encounter and in towards the Manus boss encounter just to find the key to unlock a tower to get a guy to shoot him with an arrow and bring him down. That even gives you a chance to fight him. So I think that's really unique because it's the only time in this game where you actually have like multiple layers to even get to attack a fight. And then you have like an NPC helping you. I just thought it was really neat. Ignore the fact as well, or not to mention the fact that he also has a really cool moveset of all of the green fire that he spews all over the place, and the fact that he can pick you up telekinetically and make you take 50% increased damage, which is really cool. The first time I fought this guy, I did not know what was going on, and it scared the daylights out of me. He's so challenging, and I think my favorite thing about this boss that puts him above a lot of other bosses is the fact that he is not just challenging for a melee fighter, he is challenging for a ranged fighter. On my caster playthrough, I died a crap ton to this guy because he takes 50% reduced magic damage. So he's so hard, and he's such a huge challenge. Like, this is what a good optional boss should be. In my eyes, if you have an optional boss, it should be a boss that, like, you want to fight this boss? Fine, but you're going to have to earn that win. And that's how I felt like it with this boss. I felt like when I killed him, I felt like I earned it. Because this boss was a beast of a fight. And I loved fighting him, even though I kind of wanted to throw my controller through the window every time that I died because he decided to do some bullshit fire on me again. But all in all, this fight is so cool, deserves the number 3 spot. And I absolutely love this encounter, even though it's frustrating as hell. Taking the number 2 spot, the runner-up, is the final boss of the Artorias of the Abyss DLC. Manus, Father of the Abyss. Located down in the Chasm of the Abyss, this guy drags you down to have a 1v1 fight in the shadows with him. And he is a monster. Okay, this fight is so cool on so many levels. Not only was his area really cool with all the floating humanity everywhere, but like, just look at him. He's so wicked with his big old shadow arm and his multiple eyeballs and his big ass staff and everything. He's so wicked. I think the main reason why I like this boss, even though this boss made me want to chuck my controller into a wood chipper, he's one of the more aggressive bosses in this game, and it kind of shines a light on what's to come with FromSoft in the later Souls games like Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne and Elden Ring. You know, you have the aggressive bosses, and I feel like this is like their first attempt at a super aggressive boss, and they did a really good job with it. He has a lot of wombo combo, a lot of variated attacks that keep you guessing on how to react to him, and not to mention, he also is one of the few bosses in this game that has a unique phase transition at 50%, where he starts then throwing all these shadowy magic attacks at you that you don't even know what's coming half the time until it's too late. I'm going to tell you right now, I've played through this game 4 times, and I have yet to figure out how to dodge his orb attack from the outside going in. If anybody knows, please tell me, because I would love to know. But all in all, this fight is just so wild, so crazy. It requires all of your finesse, all of your abilities to dodge. I think the only reason that the fight after this one is better is just because of the fact that this fight right here is one of those fights that it can be trivialized with an item if you have the pendant, and on top of that, it's just one of those things that, like, I just felt like the entire time that I was fighting him, I was running more than I was fighting him. And it was it was a frustrating fight. I liked this fight for what it was. I think this fight's one of the best in the series, and I think it was a great way to capitalize and finish out the Artorias of the Abyss DLC. But god dang, was this fight hard. But man, it was so cool. And I mean, look at this. Look at these shadow techs. I've never been able to dodge that, by the way. But yeah, it's so good. So good. Can't say enough good things about this fight. But all in all, I think the only thing that really holds it back is just the fact that the other one was just better. At number 1, we have the Knight Artorias. This fight is easily the best fight in Dark Souls 1. And I don't think anybody in the community is really going to disagree with me. So there's a lot of multifaceted reasons why I place this boss at the top. First, it's the actual true 1v1 sword fight. You could give that to Gwyn, but Gwyn just didn't have enough variety in his attacks. Artorias, on the other hand, you don't know what he's going to do at any given time. He is so crazy, from his spinning 360 slashes, his thrusts forward that attempts to just pierce you through the heart and attack you for trying to heal, his jumps in the air where he can dive halfway across the map at you, the fact that when you try to capitalize, he just throws toxic sludge in your face, to the fact that he also sits and supercharges himself with excess damage, does a wombo combo front flip where you have to constantly be on your toes and dodge, or he just flatten and pancakes you over and over again. Like, this guy has so many moves in his arsenal that keeps you on your toes and keeps you guessing and keeps you fighting. This fight is so good. The only negative thing I can say about this fight at any given time would have to be when he's doing his charge mechanic, he leaves himself open for ranged fighters. But the thing is I can even forgive that because of the fact that he's just so varied. And I'm not gonna lie, I got pancaked by this guy on my caster. He beat the brakes off of me on my caster. Like, this guy was ridiculous when I first started fighting him. Like, this guy has so many cool movesets, and he's such a cool character model, and his story is so amazing. I mean, he's literally a knight that tried to save the world and fell to the abyss, and now we have to fight him. Like, it's such a good fight. I can't gush enough over it. Like, this fight is what a sword fight's meant to be. I tell you right now, if Gwyn had a fight like this, I'd have placed him on it too. Unfortunately, Gwyn just didn't have it. This one, on the other hand, good God, I had so, like, this is one of those bosses that even when he beats your ass, you just sit there and go, God damn, you're cool. And you're almost happy you died because you get to fight him again. But thank you guys so much for watching. That is my boss guide. Leave a comment down below. I'd be really interested to know what you guys think of the list. Did I miss one? By the way, I did miss the Bell Gargoyles. Who really cares? Honestly, I probably would have put them, if I really had to shake it out and think about it, maybe put them, maybe like after the Capra Demon. Not that exciting. But yeah, sorry I missed those. But yeah, Bell Gargoyles, whatever. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to ding that notification bell, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, and come follow me on Twitch. The link is on the screen, and I would greatly appreciate any follow on Twitch that you want to give. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.